Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. Today we're diving into a mystery that's captured the attention and concern of residents across New Jersey. Over the past few weeks, there's been a surge in drone sightings in the skies and above our towns and cities. From bustling urban centers to quiet suburbs and military bases, these unmanned aerial vehicles have sparked questions about privacy, security, and oversight. Standing by is Pete DeBrucco, a nationally recognized travel and aviation expert, licensed pilot, author, and Jersey guy. Pete brings a wealth of knowledge about aviation trends, regulations, and the evolving role of drones in our lives. First, though, joining us to discuss this urgent matter is State Senator Doug Steinhardt. Senator Steinhardt is urging state lawmakers to convene to have a joint hearings to address these concerns. Senator, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get right into it. Senator, you've called for joint hearings on this issue. What specifically do you hope to achieve through these hearings?
Well, I mean, answers. I think there's been something of a failure of leadership on all of our parts in terms of just being open and transparent with people. They have questions. I don't know whether joint hearings will get us to answers that will satisfy people. I don't know that my request the following day, that was back on the 6th, on the 7th, I sent a letter to Governor Murphy asking for a joint briefing. And I think there's going to be a briefing of some sort tomorrow. But, you know, they were both really geared toward the same thing, which is trying to get answers that we could, information that we could share with our constituents, all of whom have questions. And unfortunately, you know, information can be confusing enough based on who interprets it. Misinformation can, quite frankly, just be dangerous. And there's, I think, a lot of misinformation floating around right now. And I think as public storage, we have a responsibility to do a better job of being open and transparent and ask hard questions so that we can deliver answers to folks.
Who do you believe should be involved in these discussions? Law enforcement, private companies? Are there other stakeholders, the people who live in the community? Who?
Well, look, any and all the above. I mean, I think at the moment, I know reports are being sent to, there's a hotline at the FBI for people to report sightings. I know from conversations that I've had personally, the state police are involved. I know from talking to the local chiefs association in my home county that they've had discussions. I've seen press releases from county prosecutors' offices, including my own in my home county. So, you know, people are sharing information with anyone and everyone that they can when they see something or think they've seen something. So all of that's kind of floating around in space, and you know there's no central place for folks to go and ask questions and seek answers. So I think my goal is to try to bring together, at this point anyway, government stakeholders so we can ask questions of them, since they seem to be the central receiving point of people's complaints, so that we can at least ask questions and try to bring some of that information back to the folks who are calling us on a daily basis and asking questions.
Well, that is my follow-up. What are you hearing from New Jerseyans? Are they concerned about safety, privacy, or is it that we don't know what's going on in the skies above our own homes?
Yeah, all the above. And I think it just depends on who you talk to. Part of the problem with just dismissing people's concerns with, there's no credible threat to anybody without any follow-up information or any explanation, is it just leaves that open to interpretation, and quite frankly it's a very difficult answer for anybody to swallow. I think that from my perspective, what I'm hearing on a regular basis, on a daily basis, is one, what are they? Two, where are they coming from? And three, what are you guys doing about it? I don't have a lot of answers to the first two. I have some, just based on conversations that I've had with other agencies and other authorities, but I can't independently verify any of those. Hence the request for either a legislative hearings or a briefing. And secondly, in terms of a level of safety, I have the same questions that everybody else does. It's difficult to tell me not to worry about it, but then you can't tell me why.
New Jersey is home to growing tech and logistics industry. So how do we balance the concerns about drones with their potential benefits, such as delivery for services and emergency response? When you start getting into these hearings, how do you strike that balance?
Well, all legitimate questions, and obviously, there's overlapping bureaucracy in terms of who controls what. I think Senator Bramnick this morning made a call for perhaps the declaration of a state of emergency so that and people aren't launching drones at all in the short term. That also implicates the FAA, who controls airspace. Congressman Gottheimer was making inquiries this morning as well. I know there's been a briefing held with the congressional delegation. I don't. Part of the problem is, until we know more information, it's kind of difficult to figure out what we need to do next. Part of the reason why I think we all need to be asking questions and demanding answers so that we can try to come up with a plan on how to address both the immediate situation, which is what everybody's seeing, and secondly, the longer term questions of what that means for us as a society, what it means for us as a state, where we happen to be located here in the 23rd legislative district, obviously, because we have had reports of what people are suggesting is drone activity in the locale of military infrastructure, in the locale of critical energy and other infrastructure, whether it's reservoirs and dams or power plants, and last but not least, obviously in residential communities. So all of those pose different concerns for different people, and all of them require similar answers. And I think a larger policy and strategy on how to deal with them going forward.
So when you talk about all the people who are getting involved, who you're working with legislatively and at the congressional level, can you talk about, again, if both sides are working together, do they seem to be on the same page? Are there any politics being played at this point? Can you talk about that?
Well, look, I'm trying to keep the politics out of it. I think there are a lot of conversations taking place. I think right now, through a lot of different people, and since there isn't a central place to go to ask questions or get answers, you have a lot of folks kind of operating in silos. Again, part of the reason why I sent the 2 letters that I did, asking to try to kind of to hone in on a central place where at least those of us that are fielding questions on a regular basis can try to collect information and then get it back out into the public purview. No, I was in Trenton yesterday. I had budget hearings yesterday, and I didn't get any sort of a partisan tinge to any of this. Everybody has questions. Everybody's getting questions from their districts. I think the level of concern varies from person to person based on who you talk to. But everybody's also equally frustrated. And I think you heard it in the governor speaking yesterday. He sort of went from his original nothing to see here to look, we're asking for help. We need more federal help. We need some help getting answers. So that's all I've been asking from the beginning, is for answers to some hard questions so that we can do a better job of being open and transparent.
Senator, what message do you want to send New Jersey residents who may be concerned and really frightened about this issue?
I share your concern. I can't quantify what exactly that is because I don't know what we're dealing with yet. I am trying to avoid that rush to judgment, that I think it's anything, more insidious than what we see. But there is a sense of urgency in asking the governor and others to convene a venue where we can ask those questions and try to drill down on some of those answers, and try to put folks, whether it puts them at ease or not, I don't know, but at least we need to be able to share with them information in real time, so that they have a sense that we're doing our job. When I say that by doing our job, I mean, obviously government's here to provide certain services, but at the same time, we're supposed to be able to protect the public welfare. And it's difficult to do that when people ask you questions and you can't look them in the eye and give them a straight answer. I'm looking to try to get those straight answers in very short order.
When it comes to the legislature, your job is generally dealing with cost of living, quality of life. So who could have imagined at the end of 2024 we would be talking about unidentified drones coming in? I mean, what's your thought just
George
on
Orwell, I guess, right? I'm joking, but yeah. Look, it kind of comes with the territory, I guess, every day. You tackle a new issue, and I'm sure I haven't seen them all yet, nor have you, in your career as a journalist. So, you take the questions as they're sent to us, you tackle the issues as they're presented, and you do that hopefully with the collection of the wisdom that you've accumulated through your however many years, in my case, 56. So, you take your life experiences, you apply them to the situation at hand. In this case, it's dealing with this drone issue. The other half of it, I guess, is just my lawyer background. You're a fact finder, so I'm doing my best to kind of, before I rush to any judgments, to acquire as many facts as I can so that I can make an informed decision and share that process, as well as the information that goes into that process with the folks that I'm fortunate enough to represent.
Senator, we thank you so much for your time, and final thoughts as we close out this segment.
Yeah, I think that the most important one for me is like to continue to be vigilant. Everybody should continue to report what they see. I would encourage people not to take matters into their own hands. That's dangerous too. But I think the most important thing any of us can do is report what we see. As I said earlier, there are critically important places, especially throughout my district. The president-elect has a summer home in Bedminster. We have reservoirs, we have power supply, we have military installations. All of those things become critically important. And I'm not sounding some crazy alarm. I'm just saying all of us should be vigilant, report what we see, and if you do that, all the rest of us will be able to continue to try to do our jobs as best we can.
Right, so key information is don't try to follow the drones and don't try and take them down yourself.
Very much so.
Senator, thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
I appreciate yours. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a nice day.
Nothing has ever been handed to me. I've had to work for it. On the field. And off the field. Kane worked with me, guided me, helped me climb higher, to get where I belong, to change my life.
Hey, welcome to the team.
Cougars climb higher. Kane University.
Joining me now is Pete Trabucco, a nationally recognized travel and aviation expert, licensed pilot, and author. Pete is here to shed some light, hopefully, on how these drones are tracked and how they're impacting our lives and what the future of this technology might look like. Pete, it's good to have you. Thanks for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me on today. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, what the heck's going on?
It's funny. A lot of people have been asking me that question. Obviously, the governor of of New Jersey is trying to ask that question. Again, there's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers right now. It could be a number of different things that are going on. The FBI obviously is involved now. I'm even hearing talk that the Army is getting involved because of Picatinny and Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island. And as you can see, it's spreading now. It's no longer just New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's now Pennsylvania, it's Staten Island, it's New York City, and so on down the line. So it is definitely a puzzle that could be fixed. But again, there's going to be a lot of research has to be done. The drone situation is pretty much uncontrolled when it comes to drones, although there is an FAA Part 107 course that you have to have a license in order to actually go ahead and do that. And that could be the way in to figure out what's going on. If it is the United States and a Part 107 has been filled out and they've got that license, usually they've got to tell what they're flying and information like that. And that could be a way.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, and is that part of the problem is nobody knows where they're coming from. Therefore, whose jurisdiction is it? And, can you also kind of answer that within the context of the growing prevalence of drones here in the United States, also here in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Because we aren't just dealing with hobby drones here. These are commercial drones.
Yes, no, these are definitely not hobby drones. These are as small as small cars, actually, big as small cars. They are very powerful. You can't hide them in your garage. They're a little too big for that as well. And unfortunately, even though the FAA has licenses going out, and there are areas where you're not allowed to go. Obviously, like I'm a pilot myself, and I know there are certain places I cannot go with my airplane without approval. The FAA has jurisdiction on most of the military areas. It's interesting that this is going on, but not just one or two drones. We're talking about dozens of them coming at the same time, which is quite interesting. And they seem to know what is happening, because when we send airplanes up or we send our own drones up to try to figure out what's going on, they go dark, and they're not big enough. If they fly low, they're not big enough to be picked up on radar.
Well, that's a great point that I was going to ask about is how hard could it be from an amateur's perspective to follow the drone, to shoot the drone down, to take matters into your own hands? Because, again, people looking on the outside, like, what's going on in New Jersey? Why can't you figure this out? What is our technology? Do we have our own drones to go in and look to see what is going on? Because, they're flying low. What can you tell us about and give us perspective?
Well, I can tell you that obviously if you've got our own drones or even our aircraft, low-flying aircraft that could actually follow these drones, the thing about them is they can hide pretty quickly in the bush and be hard to spot. But can you shoot them down? Of course you could shoot them down. But now when you're dealing with that, where's the fallout going to go? If you shoot it down in a residential area, now you've got another issue to deal with. So it's I think the best way to go with this is, first of all, find out if it's the United States that's doing this. Okay, number one. And the reason why is that there's a Part 107 course that you have to go through. It's not an easy course to go through. A lot of people do that commercial license to work for companies, to do aerial views of different corporations and companies and farmland and so on down the line. But you've got to be registered.
Yeah.
So I would say that the first place I would look if I was the FBI is, okay, who is in New Jersey or in this area that has drones? What type of drones do they have? And then go from there and try to figure out the process in that respect. Shooting them down, it sounds good, but what are you going to learn from shooting it down? It's a drone, and you might get the frequency, but there's probably hundreds of frequencies out there to do that. I mean, you could also, basically do like, find where the signal's coming from, and you can probably do that. But this technology that will allow, like they're on phones and cell phones, where they can, basically not be in the area where they're actually broadcasting. And that could be another issue as well. So it is definitely a puzzle at this point.
Yeah. Well, when you're looking and talking about the licensing, that Part 107, that's assuming that it is something from the United States. And that's the other thing. We're not getting information. We don't know where they're coming from, what their intentions are. And that's what's so unnerving for people is how do you get information? Because, we're going to elected officials. Do you go to the sheriff's office, local police department, FBI? We get it, call the FBI. But getting that information is difficult. Can you shed light onto why it is so complicated? And again, are we dealing with different agencies taking jurisdiction? What piece of the puzzle are us novices, from this side going, what is this above my house? Is there a disconnect that we're not understanding about getting information?
Well, the seriousness of having a drone like this, and of course we've had drone attacks that we've done ourselves, in the Middle East and so on. The seriousness of this is that usually drones of this size and this nature is going to be doing observation. That's pretty much what it was for, in order to go ahead and do that. So, that is something that, could be an issue. But what if they have weapons? Or what if they're observing whoever these people are? Because, 911 was, 23 years ago. But, we've always looked for another type of attack. And maybe this might be it. This might be the way to do observation. And from there, see if they can actually, arm these drones and so on down the line. So that's another possibility that we need to look at. Why it's so hard? It's funny. When the World Trade Center fell, no one thought airplanes could do what they did to the World Trade Towers. It was something outside the box. This sounds like something else that could be possibly outside the box, another way of doing something, and to have all those drones all at once coming up at the same time. We know that drones can work by themselves, but they can also, work together. We've all seen, 100 or 1,000 drones putting pictures together, at Disney World, and making images. So that could be done. The technology is really there. But again, it's at this point, it's we're going to have to do a lot of research and figure out whether it's here, the United States, or whether these drones are from some other places. And if so, how did they get in?
Right.
To the United States.
Honestly, it feels like something out of a movie. I think back to Independence Day with Will Smith when it was aliens, but do we even okay, Is that not a valid question? Is this some type of extraterrestrial? I mean, can they rule that out? What can they tell? Because people are going to be wondering, if you can't identify it, what is it? Is it from somewhere else?
Well, just by looking at the pictures myself that I've looked at, it looks like they are four-prop drones, large-sized drones. They make a lot of noise, and they pretty much follow, what we know about drones in here. So I don't think it's from outer space. I mean, obviously, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't move like it. As a pilot, basically, I've actually seen things that move pretty quickly in the sky. They're in one spot at one point, and they're, literally, miles away within seconds. These drones don't do that. They're man-made. Obviously, we don't know where they've been made or who's flying them. But I think if the FBI looks into it and if the Army looks into it, and it's strange that they're going after mostly military bases, which is another aspect. A lot of times, if you recall the old the old jets that we used to have when we were doing Area 51, and everybody thought that the F-21, I believe it was the F-21, was actually not a military jet, but something out of the ordinary, and it ended up being a stealth fighter, and then later on a stealth bomber out of Area 51 that we were actually doing ourselves. So this could be also technology that they're doing as well, that right now is under wraps. So it's way too early to try to figure it out. There's going to be a trail, and we just got to follow the trail to find out all the answers.
That is a really interesting point that you bring up, as our government might know exactly what is going on, but they aren't telling us, hence the disconnect. But in the meantime, what do you think the biggest threat is? Is it, because information is power, but if the government does know what is going on and there is a legitimate purpose, people are getting really worried. And it doesn't take much for somebody to really, to conspiracy theories to start, for things to go south the wrong way really quick. So, what do you think the biggest danger is, aside from just not knowing, what it could do to a group mentality, to, people who are just, they're scared, they're fed up, they're so done with 2024, and beam me up, Scotty.
Well, psychologically, if you see a drone and it's basically flying over your house and it's hanging out there, that could be pretty scary. That could actually be pretty scary. I mean, from that standpoint, yes. My biggest concern is this: if you've got all these drones flying around in territories where other aircraft are flying. For example, not too long ago, I think about a week ago, there was a search and rescue or a rescue mission on a crash, and the helicopter that was supposed to come in and actually pick up the victim and take him to a local hospital couldn't do it because these drones were in the way. Now, imagine that at an airport. By the way, according to the what do you call it, the 7, which is the FAA certificate, you can't fly around airports. But if they do, and they have been flying around Picatinny and other places like that, now you got planes coming in. Maybe they're private aircraft, maybe they're commercial aircraft, or maybe they're general aviation jets that come in, and they're coming into that area. They're not following any FAA regulation and not calling the tower. They're not basically acknowledging where they are. And now, like a flock of seagulls, I mean, we all know about Sully and the 730, I'm sorry, the 820, that basically he landed in the Hudson. That was because of a flock of birds. Now we're talking about a flock of drones. So that's my big issue, is that if I'm flying an airplane and I'm trying to land, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, there's 30, 40 of these things flying around, that makes the landing difficult, and it's very easy. All you need is a bird strike to take an airplane down. These are much bigger than a bird.
Right. Do you have final thoughts to give those watching context and perspective if they see one, what they should do, things they should look for, things they should not do?
Well, first of all, do not try to take it down, okay? I mean, you might have, and I'm talking more like Pennsylvania where there are weapons and they're free to use. Don't shoot at it, okay? But bottom line is, because if you miss or if you hit it, there's going to be debris. So shooting it down is not the answer. What would be the answer basically is if we can find the frequencies they're using, and then triangulate that and get back to the location where it's actually happening. That's the way to go. Do not panic at this point. It is an issue. It is a problem. And yes, we're going to have to figure out what it is, whether it's something that's stealth, maybe from the military, or whether it's just a bunch of people that have money and just wanted to try something to get a little attention. So we'll have to look and see what's happening. But I wouldn't panic right now. I think the FBI and the Army and the people that are in charge, plus the fact that we're putting regulations in now in New Jersey, so that these aircraft, or in this case, these drones, cannot fly until further notice, until they figure out what's happening. So I wouldn't lose it at this point, but it could be something that we want to really look into and maybe see if this is another way for maybe a terrorist organization to try to get to us.
Pete Trabucco, a wealth of information. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate your analysis, expertise, and insight.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.
Nothing has ever been handed to me. I've had to work for it. On the field and off the field. Kane worked with me, guided me, helped me climb higher to get where I belong, to change my life.
Hey, welcome to the team.
Cougars climb higher. Kane University.